And so, warts and all, that was the result.
Joe, I am writing, as you can see, like tons and tons of papers over here. And this is, I've got so many questions on so many levels. But before I start my questions, I just wanted to say like a big thank you and just wanted to let everybody know that Joe had to wake up at 6 a.m. He's in Los Angeles. So let's all give him a big, let's cheer him up for being here and sharing his journey with all of us.
Well, thank you for all coming here in the evening, giving your evening for this.
No, I think, yeah, thank you. This is fantastic because we're all learning, and this kind of a transparency and sharing what each creator is creating is the only way we can all, get better at what we're doing. So
do you want to add some questions or?
Yeah, so there are like a lot of questions, but one of the things that I wanted to take away was like from the first fight till the last one, till the fifth one, where it's this big sacrifice. It's all about making the characters taking away the power of what he had. Was that in the writing that you realized at that stage, or was it more in storyboarding? Was that like it just happened, or was that in the
yeah, it was 100% in the writing. That we knew we had to, like, because we wanted to get the big, robots punching each. Like I said, you go from the film about a girl, a cranky girl in the back of a car, all the way to robots punching each other in space, and be able to like have a film that holds both of those things. So we had to design that from the beginning. And so we stumbled upon early on. We actually we watched Drunken Master and kind of watched his journey in Drunken Master, and Wong Fei-hung, and his. Going from like, he doesn't know what he's doing and he's learning, but he's talented, and sort of like letting, it's a different journey, but that like you could tell an emotional character arc through action scenes. We thought was a fun challenge and what we needed to do. Cause again, all the action doesn't matter if you don't care about what's going on. Right. And trying to get to that point where, and the best action movies do that. I don't know if you guys have, I'm sure most people have seen Avengers Endgame, but there's that moment where like, on your left or whatever, and everybody shows up, and like, you're emotional, not because of the moment, but because of all the stuff leading up to that moment. Right. And so that's what structure is when you're writing a story. Structure isn't the goal itself, but structure is there because it's a tool for evoking emotion. And so we structured this around those 5 beats. It also meant that we had like a cool action scene every 15 minutes or so in the movie, and so that they gave it a good pace to it. So that was there from the beginning. In fact, we in our earliest pitches we called it Fight Sad, which is them fighting, and like you don't you hear the music more than you hear the fighting sounds. Like that was from even before we started writing. That was a goal, is to try to get to that moment.
Got it. We might have to do like a really quick like fire questioning because we have a lot.
I'll go quick. Yeah.
We'll get there and then we'll have more questions.
I'll keep it short. Yeah.
Can you talk about keeping the momentum when working on a project over a long period of time?
Yeah, animation is the worst way to make a movie, one frame at a time. It helps to have, you need a big team for animation, but it helps to have like a core group of creatives that's fairly small, who are in charge of each of the departments, who really understand the movie. That's how we managed to do it. So our art director, our lighting director, Paul Savilny, our previous supervisor, Bruno, our layout team. So we just like made sure that those key people, because then they would go away and just do their job. And if they knew as much, in fact, everybody on the team was encouraged to read the script and be involved at every stage, so that, because each artist is going to spend more time, they're on that thing 8 hours a day. I may only talk to them for 5 minutes, but they're on it 8 hours a day. So you try to empower them as much as possible so that you keep the quality high and you keep the goals high. And then it's just being an editorial. Me and Kevin and the editor just making sure it's working in editorial as much as possible, because that's where all the decisions get made.
Thank you. And that was from Liv. And Santosh here has, how much independence did you get while writing for a big studio? Did you have to make changes to the story because the management was getting involved?
Well, it wasn't a big studio. Yeah, it's a good question. This wasn't a big studio to begin with. So it was basically independently financed by Baozhou, which is I mean, they're a big company. They're a Chinese like multimedia company. So they're not small, but they're not enormous. They're not Tencent or something like that. Um, and so we worked really closely with Olivia Howe, our producer, but she gave us a lot of freedom to just make it work because we had a limited time. We made sure she liked what we were doing, but she's like, go run with it, run with it. When Netflix got involved, we were probably about halfway done with the movies when Netflix picked it up, and so they did have notes, but they were remarkably flexible. Like they knew the movie they bought. They had some notes, like I said, like how much bleeping versus whatever, and tone down some of the gun noises, and because they still had they knew their audiences, and we were very happy to listen to them. But they were really cool. So yeah, you have to be smart about that. But because it was a small team and it started independent, we actually had a lot of freedom. Working on bigger studio stuff, you have to incorporate a lot more of the studio notes from the beginning.
What is the best way to learn and gain experience about writing, direction, and screenplay?
The answer is easy. Just write and direct. This is a quote from James Cameron. I think he might be quoting somebody else, which is like, how to become a director is direct something. Everything else is just negotiating your price, your rate. And it's true, and it's kind of glib, but like it's so easy nowadays to make stuff. With Blender is free. You have your iPhone, you can shoot stuff on your iPhone, and writing is basically free. And so just practice it, just do it, because the most of the stuff that you're going to do is going to be garbage. So you just have to get all that garbage out and practice it, right? So if you want to be a writer, I would just write. Also read a lot. You can read screenplays. Like learning the screenplay format is a little bit tricky at first, but it's not that hard once you figure it out. In some ways, it's a simpler format. Doing it well takes a lot of practice. It's like, I don't know, like playing Go or chess. Like the rules are pretty easy, but getting good at it's hard. So what I do is I just read screenplays and watch movies. And when I watch movies, I will watch it once, then I'll go back and watch it again and break it down structurally, like write down what all the scenes are. That's sort of how I taught myself what movie structure is. And then once you get past like understanding structure, then you can kind of put that in the back of your mind and just write. But yeah, doing it a lot is good. Reading a lot and scripts are available now all the time, right? All over the place. Yeah.
And the next question is, I think it's the same thing about screenplay idea tips that I can send some links. Any tips that you want to give them on screenplay ideas?
Yeah, I think here's the thing. Ideas are cheap. Execution is expensive. So don't be precious with your ideas. The specific execution is the important part. I mean, if you look at this movie, we also had a film called Gear, which is a short film about a robot and an angry young woman who trashed a bunch of stuff. But they're, and that's a coincidence, right? Like, not really a coincidence. Like, I think it helped that we had made that short to get this job, but they're totally different movies and you wouldn't confuse them. So, but if you just say it's a robot and angry young woman, it sounds the same, but they're totally not. So your ideas are cool, but they're not the important part. The important part is how you execute them.
How you visualize them and what's your vision with them. Got it.
How you actually write it down, even more than your vision, is like writing it down is huge, because the jump from in your brain to on your paper is like it's like 80% of the work.
So if someone is not a good writer like me, how do you, can you storyboard it down, and is that better? Like what would you say?
Storyboarding works too. Yeah. But storyboarding is also writing, like on a TV show, that's board based. The storyboard artists get credited as writers because they are inventing the story and the structure. It's actually more expensive because you have to draw it instead of putting it in words. But story writing is not just like the words coming out of people's mouths. It's what happens when and for what reason, right? Which is why you can do it in storyboards, or you can do it in a silent film. So storyboarding is absolutely a way to do it, or even previs. Like you can do storytelling in previs, but it's about storytelling is about having an effect on your audience over time, whether it's a short film or a long film, is using the element of time to have, because a painting is like, one frozen moment, but a story is a bunch of moments strung together. So it's not just the moments, but it's how those moments relate to each other. So storyboarding is totally valid. Yeah.
Is there a difference between a director who does live action versus animation, or they are the same?
Well, the important part is the same, which is trying to get an emotional response out of the audience. The specific skills are different, because you have to understand how to direct a layout team versus a cinematography team, and the roles are kind of broken up. Like in animation, editing comes kind of first. Um, and you work with the head of story. But in live action, you don't edit first; you get your footage first. But your cinematographer acts a lot like a lead story, because they're setting up the shots. So there's analogies, but I've done both. And to me, the hard part is knowing what to do and how to tell it. Actually executing it is just a matter of like, it's like, am I riding a bike or am I driving a motorcycle? They're different, but they both get you to where you need to go.
Does an animation director have stability in terms of both finance and work-life balance?
Not really. I mean, like directors are all freelance. I mean, there are some exceptions, obviously, like at Disney and Pixar. Those folks tend to be on staff, so that is stable, but that's a very small portion of all the industries. And there's way more work in live action than in animation. But work as an animation supervisor, like supervising or directing animation on other people's films, that can be pretty steady work, and that was my job for very many years. It's because you don't get to choose what movies you're on. You're assigned to them, or asked to be on them, and you do your best work whether you agree or not. Yeah.
Is it important to be a good 3D modeler as well as and rigging to be an animator? Or like, do you think it's good to be like a generalist to some extent, or should one person?
I think both. I think both paths are valid. I started as an animator, and I didn't really get good. I'm not very good at modeling. I can kind of do like VFX stuff now, but I'm really like can't really do lighting. The lighting tools have gotten easier, and I definitely can't do rigging to any kind of consider. I mean, I can, but I'm not. I know many better riggers than me. So if you're working in a studio situation, being a specialist is probably the right path, because you're going to do one thing and you want to do it really well. If you want to be, an animator like Glenn Keane, you have to do nothing but animate. That being said, some of the best artists I know can do it all. Like Bruno Amezcua, I mentioned him. He was the previs artist who did that one uncut shot that was 2 minutes long, and but he's also a lighter and an animator. He can do it all, and that guy basically like can do a whole film like that on his own. So, and that's a stellar skill. So being a generalist doesn't hurt, but it helps to be good at everything if you're going to be a generalist. And that's the hard part. And that just comes from practice. But I started as an animator, and I basically was an animator all the way. And I animated shots on this movie. I did some layout. I did a little bit of modeling, but mostly I'm an animator who became a director. So yeah, either way, whatever feels comfortable. If you like doing it all, be a generalist. If you don't like doing some things, don't fight yourself. Just be good at the things you choose to do.
Got it. From project to project, it usually takes how many years does it take to one film to the other?
What you mean between one film and another?
Yeah. So
or
if you started next gen, like when you started next gen to when you completed next gen, like how long did it take for you to finish it?
So next gen was 2 years. So we came on I came on as a writer basically at the beginning of 2016.
Right.
And then it came out September 2018. Sorry, 2016. I think that's right.
That's right.
When did the Force Awakens come out? I had our first meeting on that film as a writer. It was when the Force Awakens came. That's when we started, and then the movie came out September 8th or 18, something like that, in 2018. So basically 2 years on that, but that's short. The film was 3 years, but like a Pixar film will be 5 years. The film I'm working on now, we've been on 2 years, and we're basically we're only really getting started. So like a bigger studio film will tend to take longer. It's one of the tricky things about animation is it does take a long time.
Got it. Very quickly, did you also do some animation in Blender? Because you did mention Blender. Like, what are the things that you did in Blender for your project on Next Gen?
Me personally, or the whole film? The whole film was all animated. Yeah, the whole film was animated, rendered, rigged, lit, rendered, composited in Blender. There was a little bit of Houdini. There's one big kind of water sequence, or two water sequences where they did some stuff in Houdini, and a little bit of After Effects for motion graphics, and ZBrush and Maya for modeling as well. But yeah, Jeff's goal at Tangent is to do everything um, in Blender. In fact, they're doing a new show over there for Jorge Gutierrez. He's got a show on Netflix called Maya and the Three, which is like 240 minutes, like a mini series. And they're doing that all in the same pipeline, all in Blender. And I think even more than we did. Yeah, so the whole thing. I animated some shots in Blender and I hated it, but that's because I was, I didn't take the time to learn it because I was rushing, but I wanted to animate some shots. So I animated shots, but I complained about it all the time. But people love Blender. And it's actually a lot of the work they did in Blender for our movie gets pushed back into the software. So some of the tools they developed for next gen, you can use today in the current version of Blender.
Awesome. For a lot of students that are here in our participants, could you quickly tell us a little bit about, like, if you're starting off as a fresher, as an animator in current day and time, what should they do with their portfolio? What should they do with their work that they put out, and how should they?
You're saying if you're a student trying to get your first job?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, like, yeah, I say software doesn't matter, but it kind of does. Like, so being able to use, because a lot of times studios won't train you if you don't know Maya. It used to be like when I started, you could be a 2D animator and they would train you to use the software. That's less the case now, but using the software is not that tough. So it's like if they say, "Can you use Blender?" You say yes, and then spend 2 weeks doing the tutorials. I think you'll be fine as long as your skills are good, which is like basic. If you're an animator, specifically, like being able to do weight, performance, mechanics. Weight and mechanics is important, but also performance and entertainment. That's the one thing I wish I'd spent more time as a younger animator, is learning about entertainment, like how to make the audience respond, because that's where the real juice comes from. Like you got to know weight, you got to know mechanics, but without entertainment, none of it matters. So learn to be funny, or learn to be entertaining or dramatic. Acting is good. That's where to spend your time. And if you don't want to work, you don't want to rig, and you don't want to model, don't worry about it. There's great modelers. Team up with a modeler. This is where collaboration helps. Find someone who has a model that they want to see animated, or a rig they want to see moved, and work together with them. Somebody who wants to light shots but doesn't know how to animate. And so that way you can kind of get a better look. But if you're going to get hired as an animator, all you need is animation. You don't need to do those other things.
I mean, I don't know much about Blender. I'm learning myself this last 6 months. What I do want to mention to students that are there, that there is the Blender market. There's the Unreal market. You can go and download a lot of cool things and test out your animation expertise. Or if you're a modeler, then do something. Like there's so much material available that was not available 10, maybe even 5 years ago, that there's just this huge market.
And the fact that Blender is free is huge, right? That you can just download it. Yeah.
Zero money spent. Could we talk? Oh, that's a really sweet question. They want to know if you're also generating toys, or like creating toys for your movie. Like, was that ever thought about?
Yeah, here, I can show you. Hold on.
To everybody that's listening, Joe does have something at the end of this Q&A to share with everybody. So hang on. Joe, are you still there? Because your screen's gone.
Yeah. I just wanted to go get, so these were made sort of as prototypes, or not, they made a run of them for the Chinese market. Netflix doesn't do a lot of marketing, so they haven't been released to the States, but this is a action figure of Seven, who's super fun. And there's a bunch of other material too. And here's a 3D printed Momo. One of the things we talked about is because Seven was like, we talk about tech joy, like built for real. So when they built the toys, they're able to use the 3D modeling parts to actually generate the model, and the joints all work like they do in the movie and stuff like that. The only thing is the hand doesn't transform, just is a little bit of a fake right there. But so yeah, there are some. Unfortunately, they're not like widely available. So if you spot one, snap it up. Yeah.
So we have someone from our ex Rhythm Hues who's got a really good question.
Oh yeah.
I think you might know him. His name is Vaibhav. He's
Hi,
asking.
it's good to see you, man.
I read somewhere that storyboards are film before film. So do you also treat storyboards like that, or do you take liberty to change it later while animating?
Both, yeah. So storyboard, I mean, you saw that one clip I showed you of the space battle, the difference between the storyboard and the final one. But you could see also see how close they were, right? But storyboards are generally they're about making this communicating the story, which means you cut out everything that's not story. But in the end, everything, music and visual effects, all that collaborates, adds to the story. So, but storyboards about ideas, like getting the right ideas, sort of in sequence, and then rearranging it and timing it so that the rest of the teams can go off and do it. So it's your blueprint, right? Your blueprint doesn't look like the house, but without the blueprint, you don't have a house. And I think that's probably the way we think of storyboards. You try to do as much as you can, but also you don't want to do too much because things are going to change and you want to be able to throw them out. So if the storyboards, the idea is to be able to throw out as many as possible. So for every board you see up there are hundreds that got thrown out.
Yeah, got it. So it's a mix basically. Like you do the best. That's okay.
You do as much, yeah, you make as many decisions as you can early on, but then you run out of time and you got to move on to the next stage. So, you don't put, all the in-betweens in because that would take up a lot of time. And if you throw them out, that's wasted time. So you try to do, what's the one drawing that does as much information as possible?
Got it. When you're in the process of writing story, do you think about the action, movement at the same time, or do you think about just the emotional beat and the character arc in writing?
Yeah, in writing, I try to think of everything at the same time. So like I don't write some writers I think maybe do say, and then an action scene happens and like kind of like just sort of leave it to the directors. Partially because we're directors as well as writers. We kind of write the fights beat for beat because the fights should also be telling emotion for us, like the action scenes. So an action scene, and there are great action scenes out there that really do this well. You look at The Matrix or Die Hard or I'm sure there's others that I'm thinking of, but that have the action scenes have emotional content, and that's in the script, right? There's other times I'm sure where a movie is like, okay, and then they fight, and it's a bunch of Transformers fighting each other or whatever, and they figure it out later on. But for us in the writing, we try to put all those beats, like that fight at the end where he goes up into space and loses all his memories. We very much worked that. In fact, we fought over which memories would be happening when. Like I thought it should happen in a certain order. Kevin thought it should happen in a different order. But so we worked out that, and then the storyboard artists used that as their guide, and it let them just do awesome stuff because they didn't have to think about what happened next.
That's a lot of polishing that happens in the writing. So can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about writing? One more question that just came to my mind is like, how many drafts of writing did you have till you got to the final? Like, did you
That's a
have
good question. I mean, officially, I think we had 3 drafts, but each of those 3 drafts, like the way I number drafts, I do like 1.5, 1.51, depending on the amount of change. But so internally, I'm constantly rewriting. Me and Kevin are constantly rewriting. During production, he tends to board, and I'll tend to write.
got it?
But uh, but yeah, so I mean, dozens and dozens, but no, but it's like, but I change small sections at a time or whatever. I think we had three official.
Yeah.
I think we had 3 official drafts, like the original draft. Then we had a screening and we redid it. And then we recorded like the first round of voices and rewrote it based on what the actors could do. And that was the third one. There might have been a fourth at the very end too, which was like after Netflix. So maybe 4.
Thank you. Which is your favorite animation film?
Favorite animated film? Probably Kira,
Nice.
a Japanese film from 1988. Yeah.
I think we are almost at the tail end of our presentation. I know there are a few more questions that are all in general. Do you have any books that you want to recommend or movies that you want to say or any links that you want to share?
Oh. Um, uh, I don't have any links prepared,
That's
but
nice.
I mean, I think they're like, yeah.
That you go to, like when you're writing or like when you're animating, you know, is there someone that?
Well, I mean, animating, there's a couple, like the Richard Williams book and the Book of Life. Even look.
That's okay, Joe. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, really, like, yeah, like movies. Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, it depends on what you like. Like, the thing I would say is like, whatever your passion is, don't forget about that and try to do something else. Like, I think for a while when I was learning animation, I kind of like gave up on the things that I loved and went after the things I thought I should like. But as I get older, I'm like, no, I love Akira. Like, why not just say I love Akira instead of trying to figure out what Disney film I like better? I mean, there's great Disney films, don't get me wrong, but you know, Akira, Iron Giant, The Incredibles. These are movies that like changed the way animation, way I thought about animation.
Perfect.
Oh, Alien, the Alien movies, Aliens. I go to those all the time. Like Alien, the first Alien has got perfect structure. Like if you want to learn about structure, that movie is gorgeous for that, and it's so well planned out. Uses every trick in the book, but uses structure to like make you feel emotion. So if you had one movie to look at right now, I would look at Alien.
Got it. If anybody wants to spotlight yourself, Shiva, if you can give them permission, we can see the audiences if they want to come on board and like say hi to Joe very quickly, and then we'll end the session. And for all the participants, thank you so much for like staying up so late. And
yeah, thank you guys.
I think you're from all parts of India, and I see some of you are from outside of India too. So thank you for doing that. What else do I want to say? Yeah, and please network within yourself. Like we're going to keep the chat alive for another 5-6 minutes after Joe leaves. So share your Instagrams, share your ArtStation links, share whatever, build a community, and go make some art. Anybody that wants to? Oh, no one's. Is there people showing up?
If you want, you can unmute your mic and you can turn on your webcam on. So I'm promoting a bunch of you as a panelist.
Yeah, if you get promoted, you got to turn your camera on.
Yeah.
Hello.
They might be at home, you know, it's a bit hard. So.
Hello.
Hi, Aram.
Hey, Aram.
Hi.
Turn your camera on, guys. We won't be taking Q&As. Just show your faces.
Hi.
Anybody else wants to show faces, say hello, please do that.
Hello, Vani. Hello, Shiva. Great to see you. And Joe, thanks for this nice presentation about the movie. It's really inspiring and really tells the details to how to make a small budget movie, because we all want to work on a big budget movie and this and that, but then how to craft a small budget movie and make it so beautiful and so nice. That's really nice of you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. My secret is I hired Richard Chen. That was the trick. That guy is amazing. Our art director. I can't speak highly enough of that guy.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful 2021.
Thanks,
Oh, you're welcome. It's so good to see all of you. I mean,
you too.
you know, I never get to see faces through these webinars and give you guys big hugs. So thank you, Joe. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Shiva. Thank you, Sanjuji. Thank you, everyone at Asifa for helping do this. And thank you to all the participants. Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm sticking around just for a sec to show a little bonus.
Stay a little longer if anybody wants to.
Yeah, I think Joe would like to some bonus.
Hi.
That's awesome.
Joe, would you like to show some bonus now?
Yeah. I think we're getting feedback from somebody.
Hey guys, can you please keep your stuff muted so Joe can share little clips towards the end of the film?
Yeah, cool. I'm waiting for that live on Facebook thing to go away.
Shiva?
Yes, Vani. Joe can share it.
Yeah, Shiva, if you can stop.
Because it's.
Yeah, it stopped.